So for my project, basically I did an egg drop activity and there was all kinds of integrations. There were math integrations, ELA, history, ELL, and you can look at the lesson plan for that, so I'm not going to go too in depth on that. The project I created would take about 1 to 2 weeks in a normal classroom. And I would have, it's worth noting, parents come to see the egg drop, and then we would also have a final evening party or celebration, and the students' part of their evaluation would be to create a poster and talk about why their egg did or didn't break, and they would tie in all of the vocab and science that we learned. However, how I actually taught it was very different. I did an after-school program, and I just went in for 3 days for 40 minutes each day, so obviously it was much more condensed. And on day 1, I talked briefly about the vocab, but then for the most part, they just experimented. And then on day 2, they actually worked on creating their device. And on day 3, they finished their device because some of them weren't quite done yet, and then we also dropped the eggs. So that was the main portion of that. I'm going to talk in just a minute about the struggles that occurred with teaching vocabulary, but absorption was one of the things that the students really understood, and this video highlights that. Why were those on the side?
To protect the side.
Right, what was the word for when we dropped it?
Absorption.
Yep, absorb the shock, good.
And then, so I did both of those there, and then cut.
I was also able to talk to students about why they were doing what they were doing.
Because these are going to be over the egg.
Okay, so tomorrow you're going to put them on the top. And what's the parachute going to do?
It's going to like slow it down. So
Can you just tell me? Why did you make it? Like, okay, what did you do?
The reason I did this is because last time we did something like this and it worked. And we didn't want a parachute because it might rip. And last time we did this, this was our plan.
What'd you put inside it?
Cotton balls and foam and bubble wrap because it's going to be all soft. And when it hits the ground, it will hit the bubble wrap and the cotton balls and not.
What does that do? Do you remember?
Vibrate or something? I
It
can't remember.
absorbs.
It.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hit the egg. It might crack.
Good. Obviously, like one would expect, when you are editing something this much, there's going to be some stuff that works, but there's going to be some stuff that doesn't. The order that I did flowed well for what was being done. Obviously, it would work better in a classroom if you had 2 whole weeks to really help kids learn everything. But for us, what I did, I felt like it worked fairly well. One other nice thing was that it was really easy for kids who hadn't been there to create a device. And the flip side of that was if kids were only there the first 2 days, it wasn't a huge loss on the 3rd day if they weren't there. So that was nice because for a lot of projects that wouldn't work. And then also, overall, the area that it was in worked really well. Having it in the gym was perfect. Now, as far as what didn't work, I'm just going to highlight a few of the main things. I should have had a uniform place that they had to drop from. And as you can see in the videos, some kids just kind of held it up a few feet in the air. And some kids climbed on the bleachers but then lowered themselves down. And some kids stood on the bleachers and like threw it in the air and dropped it. So there was not uniformity, and I would change that if I could. And obviously, it was just really rushed. Because not only did I only have 40 minutes for those 3 days, but there were also kids leaving 10 minutes after I got there. So you were trying to help them while also trying to give other kids the attention that they deserve. So that was really hard. And then the final thing that really I wasn't a huge fan of is that I didn't get to cover the vocabulary as in depth as I wanted to. One thing that they really got was the shock absorption. But other than that, there just wasn't a lot of time to cover everything, and so I was disappointed in that. Overall, it went well, and I felt like for what I had to do, it was effective. But yeah, there's definitely things I would change. In regards to what I learned about teaching in general and about myself as a teacher through this project, I'm just going to highlight basically 2 major things. the thing I learned about teaching really revolves around science. I know this whole project in general was a STEM project, but in doing the STEM, it really showed me how easy it can be for one to make science interesting, and not only that, but integrate it with a bunch of other subjects. I think so often the excuse, so to speak, in grade school is that they didn't do science because they didn't have time, because they have to do the math and the reading. But this project integrated math, and it integrated reading and language arts. It didn't integrate reading so much, but it easily could have. So I think that it just really showed me how easy that could eventually be to do. The other thing that it showed me about myself as a teacher, and I think it's going to figure this out now, is that I don't like to see kids fail, but also that kids can surprise me. It was hard for me when I saw kids doing some of their ideas to not tell them, oh, that won't work, and let me tell you why. I had to step back and remember that the whole purpose of this project is for the kids to experiment and to learn on their own. And once I did that, it made a massive difference. Once I stepped back and really let them experiment, and they came up with some really awesome ideas that if I had tried to hold them back, they would have never come up with. So that was just a really important realization for me. Along with that came the fact, like I said, that they surprised me. Because as you can see in some of the videos, and maybe you can't see, but some of the stuff that survives really surprised me. And some of the ones that I thought, oh, that will survive, didn't survive. So it just goes to show that, especially in a project like this, I couldn't and I shouldn't guess or try to guide the students. And that's something that as I get more into teaching, I'm really going to have to be able to step back and allow the kids to fail so that they can learn.
Okay, Mason.
Can we take these home?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a rock!
Okay, so the final portion of this is reflecting on the keep. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. Part 1, learner development, learner differences, learning environment. I felt like I did a good job of planning instruction based on the developmental levels. But I can really only base that on, I based it for 2nd grade. The difficulty here is that, especially with like recognizing learner differences and fostering them, I was only in there 3 days for 40 minutes, and I had no prior experience with these students, so that wasn't something that I did. Obviously, in my own classroom, I would edit this project and gear it so that it could be used with every student. I couldn't do that here, and I do regret that. I wish I had been able to go in for a full 2 weeks, but I just couldn't.
There you go. Good job.
And then the learning environment, as far as having an environment conducive to learning, I think if it had been any other project, this would not have been at all conducive to learning. But the fact that all of the students were trying to make a device, it led to some chaos, but we were in a gym, and it was actually a really good area for it to happen. So it worked out well the way it was done. If it were in a normal classroom, there would definitely be a lot more control going on, but it was an after-school program, so it was just a different environment. Content knowledge, I did have going in to teaching it. I had good content knowledge. I had to look some stuff up and really get down the vocabulary that I wanted to teach, and I really had to figure out how I was going to teach that, but I felt like going into the actual lesson, I was prepared. And then innovative applications of the content knowledge. Critical thinking was obviously a huge portion of it. I think the whole project revolved around critical thinking. The one thing that it lacked in some ways was technology, but I think the thing about technology for what I was doing at the after-school program is that it's not a must-have. It's an after-school program, so it's almost like you want the kids away from technology for a little bit. I think that's kind of the whole purpose. And then, as far as planning instruction, there was rigorous activity. The students were working really hard, and I did meet standards. Obviously, that was the whole point of this, was to integrate a bunch of standards. As far as meeting needs of students, that was the one place where I think I really kind of failed. There was a student in the after-school program that had special needs. I was not aware of him ahead of time, and therefore I did not gear it towards that student as much as it could have been. Of course, he didn't mind at all. He went and played with his trucks in the other room. But in hindsight, I would definitely gear it towards him in some way if I went back. The assessments, I didn't use any in the after-school program. The ones that I put in my lesson plan, I'm really proud of, but I wasn't going to worry about worksheets and this really intense assessment for an after-school program. And instructional strategies, there really weren't many for the program. Again, I was just really proud of my lesson plan for this, and I thought the instructional strategies in it were awesome. For the after-school program, it was kind of give the rules and let them go, and go around group to group and help where I could. And then reflection and continuous growth, that's obviously part of what I'm doing now, so that is getting done. And then collaboration and leadership. For this project, I really had to collaborate with the girl that's in charge of the after-school program. We emailed back and forth a lot, and she helped me get some videos and pictures and stuff like that. And then leadership, I think I took on a big leadership role because I led an after-school program for 3 days, and being thrown into that, I think, was good for me. And overall, I just think this project was really good for me. I haven't created a lesson plan or a project up to this point that I've been as proud of as I've been of this. I'm just really pleased with how it turned out, and it was just a really, really good experience for me.